And I threatened yesterday that yesterday was the last time I was going to go live. So if you're listening to this on Facebook, again, watching me on all the channels that I'm live on right now, this will be the last time. But I have such a cool guest, I couldn't help but stream this live as we record it. If you are listening to this on the iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play or anywhere else you listen to it, we are doing these episodes live from this point on. They are going to be on certain times, on certain days on the Flip Talk podcast with Don Costa page. Make sure you're liking that so that you can watch these and get the information well before it actually goes out on the podcast platforms. So the only thing I have for the business side of things today is I just want to make sure I'm always plugging beinThisRoom.com for the Inner Circle Elite Mastermind. It's important to surround yourself with incredible people. So much of my business has grown, and I've grown as a person by being in the right room with the right people. So if that's important to you, go to beinThisRoom.com. Other than that, it's time to talk about my guest here. Trevor, how you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing amazing, and I appreciate you inviting me on. And one thing I want to double down on here, Don, is you had just mentioned beinTheRoom.com, right?
Yeah. BeinThisRoom.com.
BeinThisRoom.com. So the way that you and I connected was through Adrian, who was at your mastermind, and he came back and was just raving about the people in that room, including yourself. And he's like, man, this is just such an amazing group of people. And connections like this happen when you get in rooms like that. So guys and gals, if you're looking for a spot to plug into, go to beinThisRoom.com.
Absolutely.
Awesome thing.
Perfect. Appreciate it. So you are, we were talking before we got on here. You're in Roseburg. My mom lives about 30 minutes north of you. I'm traveling up there all the time and we haven't connected yet. We're going to have to meet in person and have lunch for sure.
Oh yeah.
But you're doing some great things up there in Oregon, which is beautiful. I have to say, Roseburg is a beautiful community. The mountains and the trees, I love it so much. I'm sure you're working hard and you're enjoying life up there. Tell me a little about what you got going on.
Dude, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, all the way from literally yesterday, I was right on the other side of this building here. So we have 8,000 square feet here. It's an entrepreneur co-work space. It's been here for a decade now. Part of the Carrot offices are here. We have 31 full-time people now. We have about a third of our staff here, but then we bought the building next door too. And we're going to be putting retail downstairs and a wine bar and residential upstairs. And we're looking at other buildings to buy. So that's the real estate part is, I take my active income and put it into properties like that. And we're going to see if we can't buy up more of downtown, renovate it and get more positivity and action going on. But then on the rest of it, we have a company called Carrot, which some people who are listening might be familiar with it, carrot.com. We help a lot of top real estate investors and agents now to build more authority online, stand out, and attract more leads online. So that's kind of the quick of it, man. We've got a great company, helps tons of real estate investors and agents close more deals. And then we fuel that money into the local community, into real estate projects.
Very cool. So I take it you're a serial entrepreneur. Always got to keep your hands busy, right?
I am, man. And I was just talking to Brady on my team a second ago. We were doing a little interview. We have a new series coming out called Inside Carrot. And we dove into the backstory of my story. And previously to Carrot, I had always had a lot of stuff going on, man, like 3, 4, 5, 6 businesses. And I kind of wore it as a badge of honor, where it's serial entrepreneur doing tons of things. That's cool. What I didn't understand though, was if you're doing a bunch of things kind of mediocre or half-ass, then you really aren't able to make the impact or grow something you can really enjoy as much. And so we could talk about it on here if it makes sense, or we could talk about other topics, but I made a shift about 6 years ago where I said, let me just focus on one thing. Let me focus on one thing. And I'm only going to run one thing at a time. And then I'll set up people to run the other things if I want to start something else. So I literally have one business that I'm spending 99% of my time in. And then my real estate projects, it's less than 1%. And I have other people helping with them.
Yeah, I think that's an important conversation to have and someplace to stick for a minute, because I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. We had a lot of people who are doing this real estate thing that listen to this show are entrepreneur bred through and through. And we're always trying to push, right? We're always trying to push for that next thing, and we take on and we take on and we take on and we lose sight. And that's been the kind of the theme of, I think, probably the last handful of episodes I've done is we start to lose sight of why we got into this and we build a prison for ourselves. And so I think it's cool that you share that you were kind of in that same struggle and you've decided to focus on where your priorities were so that you can find a little bit of balance, which I think balance is probably impossible for some of us, but enough balance to make what we do enjoyable and still have the time and freedom we want to have.
Dude, so here I could talk to this topic for hours for sure.
Absolutely. Me too. I mean, me too.
So here's one thing that I want to put out there for everyone listening is first of all, as entrepreneurs, as founders, we tend to be kind of creative. We tend to like the start, right? I love something called the Kolbe test, KOLBE, and it's something we have all of our employees take. And it kind of measures like how you naturally tend to work. And I'm a really high quick start. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm an 8 quick start and I'm a 2 follow through. And then the other two things in there, I kind of forget about them. But I'm an 8 quick start, 2 follow through. And what happens when you're a high quick start, and that's how most founders are, is you kind of want to move on to the next thing. You want to start things. As soon as you get into maintenance mode, or as soon as you get in like the middle of it, you're about 18 months to 2 years in after that honeymoon rubs off of the start.
Right.
We're oftentimes looking for something new. And that's where I had made a lot of mistakes early on, where I was on this pattern, Don, of literally every 2 to 3 years, I'd be looking for something new. I'm like, man, I don't know, maybe this business here that I just started kind of wasn't it. And I wasn't feeling that fire in my belly anymore. I wasn't wanting to wake up in the morning and do the work that I'd created in that job. And even though everyone else from the outside in was looking at it going, man, Trevor's got it made, which I did. I just wasn't grateful for it. And the thing that I didn't know how to do, Don, was how do you take that energy that you get as a founder in that early phase, the build phase, the exciting phase of building and starting something? How do you take that same energy and build that into your business and make it so you continue to innovate within your company and keep your energy going forward within one asset, within one business? Because I would always kill those companies or start to get distracted and go into something else right at the phase of around 2 years in, when you just start to get momentum in something. And so I was on this pattern of grow, I'd have some success, and then I'd get distracted and get bored, and I could never get momentum to build that thing up. And it was on this like treadmill of business starting. And once again, I felt that was cool. That's what you're supposed to do as you're a serial entrepreneur, right?
Right.
I really learned, I'm like, that's backwards. And I started to look at people that were good, that were people I wanted to emulate. And I saw Richard Branson. I'm like, I know that it's possible to run a lot of companies and have a lot of fun and have success doing it. Like, I see examples, so therefore I know that it's possible. Richard Branson's the billionaire all billionaires want to become.
Right.
Right. And I go, so what's the difference between what he's doing versus what I'm doing? Well, the difference was he would have an idea. He would then gather the people. He would create a desired outcome together. Where do we want to do? And then he would resource that and put someone else in to lead it. So he was the guy that would drive the vision and have the accountability. And I was always the guy that would start it. I would lead it. I would find where do I find more time on my calendar? And then I would eventually get burnt out.
Right.
And so then that's where I started to change things moving forward with Carrot. It's like, I'm not going to start something else unless I can put someone else in to lead that and have them share in the results.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely an important takeaway. It's a huge takeaway because, I've been on somewhat of the same cycle. I think a lot of people do. And if we're not creating something new, we're breaking what's working well, like in our organization, because we like to, and this is probably deeper we need to get to, but I think there are some of us that like to live in the chaos. Those of us who like to create businesses or are serial entrepreneurs, really the truth is we like the chaos of the startup, right? And the creativity that comes with the chaos and fixing the problems and figuring stuff out. And so if you're not moving on to something else, you're breaking what's working so that you can have that chaos back. And I think if once you self-identify that, once you're self-aware enough, you can start fixing that pattern like you did, putting the right people in place, which I think is hugely important. And people fail to do, and get a business that's running like it's supposed to be before you put your attention somewhere else. So it's huge. Yeah.
And dude, I kind of want to talk about, if you're cool with it for a couple minutes, lifestyle business versus building a real business. And this is something I think a lot of investors fall into this trap. I know I did, and I maybe will do it again. You never know. Like sometimes history repeats itself. Hopefully not. But you've got this desire to go, hey, I'd love this mailbox money, right? Because you're kind of running away from something, that you don't like. You're running away from the job that you don't like, or the job that doesn't pay you well enough, or the boss that doesn't appreciate you. Usually when we're starting something, we're usually running away from something. And now what happens is when you had finally got away from that thing, the job, the bad pay, the whatever it is, the cap in your career, when you get away from that thing, where most people start to fail, and this is where they fizzle out or they self-sabotage and break what's already working, is they don't make the transition to now run towards something. And so you're usually same thing around that 18 months to 2 years, maybe 2.5 years in, where I see it so common. They got away from the thing. Now they're making the money they need to make. And then they start to fizzle out, and they show up to these masterminds, and they're comparing themselves to others now. And then they just start to chase higher numbers. And the thing is, numbers are never going to end. So as long as we're always tying our happiness or fulfillment to hitting a new goal, you're always going to be unhappy, because there's always a larger number, always. And you're always going to show up to a new mastermind where someone has a larger number than you.
Right.
And then you're going to go back and go, well, shoot, maybe I just need to shoot for that as my next thing.
Right.
And so what happens is we need to run towards something and find that thing to run towards. And that's when, about 2 years into Carrot, that shift happened for me, because I was the same thing. About 2 years in, we had by that time, an over $1 million a year business. And we're looking at it going, okay, man, I don't know. Like, do I want to keep doing this? Do I just find something else? So I turn it into a lifestyle business and just kind of sit back and let some cash flow come in. And at that point, I'm going, man, I don't want a lifestyle business. I thought that I did. But what happens with lifestyle businesses usually is you pull back, and it works amazing for a period of time where money comes in and it feels like I've got a lot of flexibility. But then what happens when you're not putting care to it and building new systems and trying to grow the thing is eventually something happens where the business starts to slowly dwindle away. And so you really lose that ability to have consistency, predictability for the long term. And you then trap yourself in this cycle of continually having to start and refix and start and refix, which is not what any of us want over the long term. And so I had to shift my mindset. Like I said, about 2 years into Carrot, around 2016, I said, man, do I just want to pull back and keep our revenue where it is and keep our team count where it is at 7 or 8, 5, 6, 7 or 8 people? Or do I want to really build something? And I had to blast through this mindset block, Don, where I had this crust in my mind of what it meant to build a team. Love my parents to death. They're like my favorite people in the world and amazing mentors. My dad's like the most positive guy ever. And that's where I got a lot of my positivity, except for one topic. He would always come home when I was a kid and complain about his employees. And he'd always say, you can't find good people. He'd always say, if you want it done right, you've got to do it yourself. And like those adages that come up a lot. And so that was the mindset that I had coming in of what it meant to have employees. So I was avoiding it like the plague. And I kept myself into this cycle of where I could never grow something into a spot where I could truly get freedom from it. I could never grow something into a spot where it was really truly worth something and where it truly gave freedom and flexibility and helped me make the impact. And so around that time in 2016, I'm like, all right, what am I running towards now? Am I running towards just vegging out, eating potato chips and getting mailbox money for a while? But then I know I got to refix it within 18 months because the money will dwindle off. Or do I really want to build something long-term that has real impact, that can give me real purpose, and that can also help a lot of other people? And then I said, what's in my way? And I said, yes, I do want that second option. I want to build something that matters. I want to build something that gives me real freedom and flexibility and really helps other people a lot. And I said, what's in my way? And it was that one mindset around people. I'm like, the only way I can do it is with more people. And I don't want to do it in a way where I'm dreading coming to work. And so I started to look at good examples, the Bransons, the other people, and I go, how do you build companies where people love working there, but also you love building people? And you absolutely love, like, we're over 30 employees. We're going to be over probably 45 employees this year. And I absolutely love that. I want more of it, because I was able to shift my mindset around what people meant to your business.
Yeah, I mean, that's all huge. And just to kind of unpack it real quick for everybody who's listening, because, this isn't like, shiny object, sexy conversation, but this is the real stuff that matters when you're building a business and you're becoming an entrepreneur. I've had the opportunity to work with and look at businesses from a high level, 7-figure businesses plus businesses over the last few years. And for the ones that have stumbled along their journey, there's always an underlying reason. And it's generally hitting a point of success and then chasing somebody who they think is bigger and trying to grow themselves, and they'll grow themselves right out of success and right back into, struggling with having money in the bank. And I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody where they said, we were doing great. We pushed for growth. We grew our team in the wrong way. And suddenly we weren't making money. We were struggling. We went back to the fundamentals of this business, and we downsized our team, made sure that everybody was in the right seats, that we had the right people in place. And we made more money this quarter than we did in the last two combined. And, because you got to be doing it going towards something, and having that purpose in mind. And that's really, really huge. The other part that I see people, the second reason why I see people that struggle from once they get to a certain place is they'll check out and they'll go sit at home and have the potato chips. And, like I have a COO in my real estate business, and she does a great job of running it, but I still got to have my finger on the pulse of the business, and I still got to give my input from time to time. Otherwise it starts to stumble. And that's just the practical reality. I think there are some realities to being a business owner, there are some freedoms with it too, but there's some realities. I think you hit all those really, really well.
And like you're saying, I mean, there are so many things that are amazing about a business when you set it up right. But dude, I don't show up every day pumped to come to work. Like,
Right.
I don't care if you're a unicorn rider and you love riding unicorns. Like, there's gonna be some days you don't want to get on the darn unicorn and ride it. And so with business where you talked about, hey, you've got a great COO and you need to feed into that person, or the person that kind of gets tired of it and they pull back and then the business starts to dwindle away. The things where I had done that, because I'd done all those and I'd done them all multiple times, was I didn't find a way to use my unique gifts, my unique abilities, the things that give me energy. Don, I didn't find a way to use those in the business in my previous ones after a certain amount of time after the startup.
Right.
And I think that's really important. And so I created a process called the energy audit. It was about 5 or 6 years ago I created it, because I found myself in this repeated pattern where I would start something, I'd be really excited, high energy. And then once again, within 18 months, I was just dreading it. I'd get to the end of the week and I go, man, I feel like I did a lot of stuff, but I'm absolutely wiped. I'm absolutely drained. And I wouldn't have a very clear why that I would want to even grow the company. And I remember vividly, this is about 5 years ago into Carrot. So we're 6 years in the Carrot, maybe 4 years ago. We're doing our annual planning and we're sitting there. There's 3 of us at that time that we were doing our annual planning on the leadership team. And we looked at our revenue we did the year before. And then we did what all companies do, right? Okay, carry the one, what's the new revenue number? And it's always higher. Like, you never pick a revenue number that's lower or the same.
Right.
And so we looked at it, and this is 2 or 3 years in a row of doing that. Okay, here's what we did last year. And let's just pick a higher number. And there was some math involved into it. So it wasn't just like pulling out of thin air. And then we pulled back and we're like, man, we actually hit our revenue last year. That was like our big goal. Like, it'd be cool if we could grow a business to this point. And we did it 2 years in. And we just looked at it and we said, went up there next to the number, and I wrote a big old word up there. I said, why? And then I circled it and I put an arrow to that number. I said, why does that new number matter? And we sat back and looked at it. We said, if we can't give ourselves a real reason why hitting that number actually matters to something real, other than just, ego or hitting a new number, because we already hit the money that we were looking for. If there's not a reason that that's going to help us achieve a mission or purpose that we really feel in our core is worthy, if that number isn't going to really help us to do something that is within our dreams and help us get more impact, then we're just going to dial it back and do what we did last year and just enjoy it and just have more time, right? Have more time with families, which is why all of us, we want the freedom and flexibility. And so what I've discovered is there's a trade-off. It's almost like a triangle. You have freedom, flexibility, and you have impact. And if you can picture a triangle here and one of those words in each end of the triangle, if you want more impact, you're going to have to give up some freedom and flexibility during that phase of time in your life where you're wanting more impact. If you're wanting more, and I guess finances, you put a fourth one up there. If you're wanting more finances and wanting to really focus on that, you're going to have to give up a little bit of freedom and flexibility as well. Okay, if you're wanting more freedom and flexibility, you're likely going to have to give up a little bit on the financial side during a phase, or a little bit on the impact side. You're going to buy freedom and flexibility, which means you're going to have probably a lower impact a little bit and a little bit less financial. And so we looked at that and we said, okay, we were really optimizing on the financial side, which meant we didn't have the time to really have freedom and flexibility. And we also didn't create time for impact. And so we said, this next phase, we're going to optimize for impact. And we're going to give up a little bit of freedom and flexibility, knowing that in the next 2 years, we're going to be building systems and building people and all that kind of stuff. And so that really is what pushed us forward. That's what we started running towards, is we said, cool, the only reason why we would want the revenue to keep growing is because then we could funnel it into things that matter to us, and we can make a much bigger impact. That's how we're buying up a lot of downtown. That's how we're impacting hundreds of thousands of people with our message. That's how we now have dozens of employees. It's because the larger the company grows, the more we can put Roseburg on the map, the more we can funnel money into buying this town and starting to funnel, amazing things downtown, and also just empowering more business owners like yourself and the listeners here to build businesses that matter.
So Trevor's mission is to own Roseburg. He's gonna
well, at least a few buildings here.
Own a town, right? That's no, I mess with you. Everything you're saying is huge, and for those of us who've been in this game for a while, I know it's hitting home. It's definitely making sense. I mean, and it goes back to knowing, starting to identify your why and your purpose, and the fact that I love that, the whole putting the arrow to the number and asking why. That's an important question to ask when you're setting goals, is what do I hope to gain from that? I'm doing that right now with somebody on another project I'm working at, where they're really digging into my vision. Why? What do I want to accomplish with it? And so we can build things right. And it's so huge. For those of you who are newer, you're probably looking at us going, you're nuts. We just want to make a whole bunch of money, and that's our why. And that's okay, but you need to hear some of what we're saying, because if you come into this brand new with your understanding of your purpose behind it, you're gonna stumble less, and you're gonna build something far better sooner than I was able to, and I'm sure you were able to, Trevor, as well. So,
and dude, I'm so glad you said that too, Don, because giving those newer entrepreneurs that permission, right? Because dude, I know for me early on with my previous companies, one of the things that actually robbed me of joy for about 2 years was me banging my head against the wall trying to find my purpose. Because you see everyone out there on these podcasts, the things that I'm saying, you see a person who's already kind of on the other side of the other side of that pendulum, and you go, okay, if that's what I need to do, I must need this purpose that hits me at my core. And the problem was, man, I was going, man, I'm doing this all wrong. And I was starting to feel guilty and starting to feel bad about it, and going, man, I don't know, maybe I just can't, I figured out how to make money, but I didn't figure out how to actually have purpose. And so what I actually did was, and this worked really well for me, was this is going into 2011, I think it was. I said, okay, maybe 2012. I said, okay, I'm going to give myself a year to completely giving myself permission to not worry about my purpose whatsoever. Like, my purpose this year is to just look back at the end of the year and know that I did the best that I could do as a human being, to be the best father, to be the best husband, and to be the best leader, and to do the best on one business that I could do. And that was my whole purpose that year. I'm like, no more guilt, no more looking for my purpose, no more any of that stuff. I just want to look back at the end of the year and know that I did the best I could do in those 4 categories: husband, father, leader, and as a business owner. And so then you start to look at it and go, okay, what are the things that are stopping me from doing my best? Some of it was habits, I just had the wrong habits. Some of it was mindset. So I had to adopt some new mindsets. Some of it was I just honestly had too much on my schedule and too much on my plate. And so I'd read a book called The Pumpkin Plan just before that from Mike Michalowicz. I got to page 16 in the book, and dude, I've sent hundreds of copies of this book out. I've only read 16 pages of that book. I closed it after page 16 because I got what I needed on page 16, and I shut it and I said, this is it. This is my unlock. And the concept of the pumpkin plan is essentially, he interviewed these world champion pumpkin growers, the ones at the fairs, it's this ginormous thousands pounds pumpkin. And he said, there's something that you're doing differently to grow these giant pumpkins than other people, because they're abnormally large. And he started to interview the ones that were winning these championships. And the guy said, okay, well, here's how you do it. Number one, you start with the right seed. Okay. He said, if you start with the seed for another type of pumpkin, it's going to grow into a smaller pumpkin. So you have to start with the right seed that even has the opportunity to grow that big in the first place. Number two, you plant several of those seeds out there. You don't just plant one. Okay. So you dabble, you kind of take the buffet at the start, and then you start watering them. Eventually you're going to see some sprouts come up, and you're going to see some pumpkin vines grow. On each vine now, you're going to see some leaves, and you're going to see a few pumpkins grown on each vine. He said, pretty quick, you're going to find, a handful of pumpkins in each vine that look more promising than the others. And let's say you've got 2 or 3 vines. You go, cool, cut everything else off. Everything else in those vines gets cut off. And then you keep watering it. And then eventually, pretty quickly, you're going to see, okay, this one pumpkin on each vine has the most promise. It looks like it's probably going to be the biggest thing. And he said, then you trim off everything else in that vine, all leaves, ruthlessly trim off every leaf, everything, every sprout that keeps coming off of it, you trim it off. And then you keep watering it. And then he said, you can almost in that last week, visually see that pumpkin grow in that last week. And he said, man, it's such an amazing analogy for business, because what happens with us is we're going out there just grabbing pumpkin seed and throwing it out there, thinking the more the merrier, but we're grabbing the wrong seeds, which for us is the small ideas. It's the stuff that really doesn't have a chance to grow big, because that seed of an idea can't even get there. And then number two, we water, and then the more sprouts, the more pumpkins in the vine, the merrier. But what happens is when you trim everything off that vine, all of those resources, all of the nutrients go to that one spot and give that one pumpkin a chance to grow the biggest. But when you don't trim things off, the nutrients are split between all the leaves, all the different pumpkins, and they minimize the size. And you're actually quadrupling your workload, because now you got to take care of all this and your result is smaller. And so that happens in business. And I read that book and I'm like, man, I'm gonna remove my issue in my brain of banging my head against the wall for my purpose. And then number two, I'm going to pumpkin plan my life. And I said, the only way I can build the best business is to focus on one for this year to start. And that's when Carrot materialized out of that idea. I got rid of everything else. I sold companies. I walked away from companies. I trimmed projects. I gave things back to people. I put systems here in my rental properties, so I didn't touch them. I'm like, cool. I'm not going to get distracted for a whole year. I'm going to run the course with this to see if there's a seed of an idea with Carrot. And if it doesn't feel like it's going to be the biggest pumpkin at the end of the year, I'll do something else. If it looks like it's got potential, I'm going to have another contract with myself for another year to give myself another year to water it. And every year I have that contract with myself. Do I want to do it again? Do I want to do it again? And we've just kept watering it. It's kept getting bigger.
That's huge. And I love the analogy of the pumpkin plan, because we will do that in our business, especially with marketing, not to pivot to lead gen, but yep. I know that you're good on lead gen. So with marketing, I notice people will do that. They will throw a whole bunch of seeds out and then they won't trim back the vines. And I've always been one to say, find, a lane, figure that lane out, master that lane, and get it dialed in and feed that marketing channel until you're comfortable enough to move on to the next one. So you feel like it's got its own momentum and you understand it. You got your KPIs dialed in and your team trained on it, and then do the next one. And so many people, especially newer, they're trying to do like 5 different marketing channels at once, and they don't have enough money in any one of them, which is like feeding the pumpkin, right? So that's a huge analogy for all of your business, taking care of your team. Some people, like I made the mistake a couple years ago. I had a phenomenal acquisitions person on my team. And I thought, well, if I can duplicate that person 6 times, right? And all I did was drain that person's out. Looking back on it, I know what his thought was. Well, you're taking food out of my mouth now, because you're passing all the appointments on to these 6 other people. And so it's kind of the same. And you could take that analogy in your business in so many different directions. I think it's huge. I think it's cool.
And dude, you're spot on with the marketing thing. It's funny. I was at an event recently. I don't go to a lot of events, but I was at an event recently, and that event, it talks, their lead sources are cold calling. They were some SMS. I mean, a lot of it's, there's things I call ebb and flow marketing. Like any outbound marketing tends to be ebb and flow based on the demand of that type of marketing in that market, right? So here's an example, y'all. Direct mail, let's say 6 years ago, was like, bam, crushing it, or whatever. It depends on the market, right? But it was just crushing it. And then what happened was people started to complain about response rates. And they're going, shoot, I used to be able to send out X amount of direct mail pieces, and now my response rate is X. So I've got to now send out X times X, right? You had to send out way more mail pieces to get the same result. And then right around that time, you started to see cold calling pick up again, right? Where maybe the 7 or 8 years before that, cold calling was the jam, and then direct mail picked up. And so then a lot of people switched to cold calling. And then the same thing happens about 18 months to 2 years in. People are saying, shoot, my sellers, we're all calling on the same list. My sellers getting 6 calls and 14 postcards and da-da-da. So my response rates and stuff on cold calls started to kind of dip a little bit. And then what happened next, Don, was SMS pops up, right? It's like, cool, now everyone's doing SMS. And then now what are we hearing? Well, shoot, there's some regulation stuff, and now our response rates are going down. And so the thing is, they're going to keep on ebbing, and right now I'm talking to people that are really ramping up their direct mail again because a lot of people have cut their direct mail. And that's the exact time when, as an investor, I would look at your market and go, if everyone else says to stop doing direct mail because it doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
I would be looking to go, that's probably what I should be seriously looking at right now. Because if everyone else is pulling out of it, then it's going to be freeing up more space for me.
Mm-hmm.
On the online side of things, let's go to Google pay-per-click. Google pay-per-click is still one of the most consistent sources of highly motivated house seller leads that close fast, that have insanely high margins. And SEO, so search engine optimization, is what we really focus in on. You know, if you Google "sell my house fast," insert any city in the country, you're probably going to find somewhere between 3 and 8 carrot sites dominating almost every city in the country for that phrase, and hundreds of others. And it's based on how our tech stack is built and our content marketing tools and conversion rate and all that stuff. But what happens is on the PPC side, I was talking with a client of ours about 8 months ago, Brian, down in Dallas, Texas. And he had done really well with Google pay-per-click mixed with SEO his first year in Dallas. Like, this is 2.5 years ago. He did $600K in wholesale fees in Dallas, one of the most competitive markets in the country. And he was coming in way after hundreds and hundreds of other investors were there. He made it work. But then he hits me up 8 months ago and he goes, man, I've sort of hit a lull. Man, my leads like dropped off like this. My click cost is going up like this. I was at a mastermind and they're saying that they're bailing from PPC because click costs are getting too high. And then I sat down with him. I go, cool. So do you think that this is like a long-term trend, or is this emotion creeping into your marketing? And he goes, I don't know. I said, well, cool. Let's do the math. Math always trumps emotion with your marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we said, cool, Brian, write down what your average profit per deal is. All right. So he wrote it down. Let's just go with the number of $20,000. What's your average profit per deal? And I want you guys listening to this to play along in your markets. So average profit per deal is 20K. So cool. What's your lead to close ratio right now, Brian? Well, cool. I'm still getting about 1 in 10 leads into a deal. And, you know, it used to be 1 in 8 with these types of leads, SEO and PPC for him. And now it's 1 in 10, 1 in 11. Now, if you guys are listening to this going, there's no way he gets those numbers. Your lead to close ratio differs based on your marketing method. Your cold calling, you're probably going to be somewhere between 40 and 60, right? 40 and 60 leads into a deal. If you're doing direct mail, it's somewhere between 20 and 40 leads into a deal. If you're doing radio and TV, it's going to be somewhere between the 50 and 70 leads into a deal. If you're doing Facebook marketing, depending on the campaign, I'm talking sellers, you know, it's going to be somewhere between the 20 and 40, 20 and 50 leads into a deal. And SEO is somewhere between 1 in 8 and 1 in 15 leads into a deal. PPC is somewhere between 1 in 10 to 1 in 20 leads into a deal. And so what that shows is the motivation of the prospect and the motivation, like how motivated are they to close the deal? Because if someone is actively seeking out a solution on Google, they're way more motivated because they're actually trying to find you. They're going to you and saying, I have a problem, I need it solved. The other methods are amazing. And that's where you're going to get your volume. You're going to get your volume from the outbound. You're going to get your targeted from the inbound. And so the volume is going to be closing at a much lower rate because you're usually activating demand. You're usually putting a message in front of people saying, hey, do you have, oh man, yeah, I do have that problem. Let me reach out to you. They're going to be less motivated, but that's where you're going to get your volume of deals. So, and so I was walking him through this math equation. His was 1 in 10, $20,000 per deal. And I said, cool, Brian. So what are you currently getting your deals for? And what would you be willing to trade in marketing for a $20,000 deal? He's like, all day long, I'd trade 5K for 20K all day long. I go, cool. What are you getting them for deals right now? Well, it used to be 3K deal. Now it's inched up to 3,700. And I said, awesome. So why are you thinking about quitting your PPC when your click costs are getting higher? And he said, that's true. Because other people were saying it's getting so expensive. My click costs have too. I said, cool. The math just told you that you can actually spend. So if we take this, if we say that we'd be willing to spend $5,000 to get that $20,000 deal, and he's currently closing 1 in 10 of those inbound leads into a deal, that math shows if you divide 5,000 by 10, that you can spend up to $500 per lead with that marketing method, and you'll win.
Right.
And most people are going out there comparing their lead costs, and they're going, well, my buddy over here is getting leads on Facebook for $42 and mine are $265. I'm like, I need to stop this lead source because he's getting for 42. What someone else is getting their leads for doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. All that matters is your math equation and your market for you and the way you're closing deals, your average profit per deal, and what you'd be willing to trade in marketing costs to get that deal. And you should be spending as much as possible with a high converting website with a great campaign to close as many of those deals as you can. And so I'll close this story and toss it back to you. But he had about a month and a half where things hit a lull. And I said, what you've got to do is not trim back. I know you're feeling like you want to, but I'm going to actually advise you to double down on it this month and just trust me. And I said, what's probably happening right now is there's some market dynamic there. And then you're going to find everyone else in your market's feeling the same thing. And a lot of them are going to give up, and you're going to see your numbers get even more favorable. That happened. And last month, in the month of February, he texted me, and I've got a screenshot of it. He texted me and he said, my best month ever, $200,000 in wholesale fees in 1 month in Dallas, all from PPC and SEO. He spent 25 grand to do that. So because he held the course and other people were starting to drop out when your costs were rising, he knew his math. He knew he should just outspend them, and all the novices that are basing it off of emotion are going to lose.
Yeah, and that's some fantastic advice there. And again, you said a lot of really, really cool things through there. You know, I'm a direct mail guy. I'm old school. I've been a direct mail guy for years. I send anywhere from 750,000 to about 1.2 million postcards a year. I send a lot, and I've seen the same thing. There's an ebb and flow. It gets a little tighter when a bunch of people get in, then everybody thinks it gets hard, and it gets real easy. And I just stay the course with it. And it's true. But one thing I also want to point out is you were talking about comparing lead costs. So one guy would be $42 and one guy would be, say, $250, right? Like you said. The thing that people, when they hear the grass is greener over here, is they're not asking the question like, well, what do you call a lead? You know, this guy might be anything with a heartbeat to lead, and you might be anything that basically is X amount of equity and says XYZ as a lead. And so how you call something a lead, maybe how you're calculating what a lead costs. So that's just important too. We all run our business a little differently. And when we're comparing notes and trying to see if we're as good as everybody else, we may be making decisions different. There may be different market dynamics. There's a lot of reasons why you should be looking at what you are able to do, what you're able to close, what you're able to make, and not consider what everybody else is doing first, you know?
Dude, 100%. And if anyone starts to talk lead costs with you, then I would come back with, hey, awesome. Congratulations. How much is your average cost per deal with that source? And they might say, well, shoot, I haven't closed one from it yet. I go, cool. Like once you start closing consistent deals, come back to me. I'd love to hear what you're doing it with. Or they might say, man, it's $7,000, and maybe your average cost per lead is $3,500, but your leads are 5 times more expensive. But here's the deal, like you said, they're way higher quality, right? So that's where that difference is on Facebook. What we find is you can get a really low lead cost over there, but usually it's going to take you more leads to close a deal out of that. And so then you've got your resources into talking to more people, your team, things like that. Now, Facebook works great. We have people that are absolutely doing amazing driving off Facebook. Another thing people will say is they'll look at their Facebook leads and they'll go, oh man, Facebook lead ads are crushing it. Like I'm getting leads through Facebook lead ads for $27 a piece, but the leads I'm getting where I drive into my website are costing me $77 a lead. And so what most people do is they go, well, shoot, that must equal lead ads are better because they're a third of the cost for me. What we end up finding with lead ads is, and if people are asking, what is a lead ad? A lead ad is essentially when you see an ad in it, you click it and it essentially imports your information as a Facebook user. And it says something to the effect of click this button to get this thing. It could be an offer or whatever. And it imports all of your Facebook information and gives it to that advertiser. You never actually go to the advertiser's website. You never leave Facebook. And a lot of people think that's attractive because it's quick. It immediately gets the information. And it's always accurate information. Okay. You don't have your burner phone number on your Facebook account. And so what we end up seeing though, is your lead to close ratio, Don, is way worse on lead ads than it is driving them to a well-designed website. Now, why is that? Because when it's a lead ad, you didn't have a chance to build credibility with them. You didn't have a chance to build trust. You didn't have a chance to let them click around your site and see all of your case studies and testimonials and see your about page and learn who you are. But when you drive them from a Facebook ad to your website, you're having that chance. So those leads we find actually close into a deal at a far, far larger rate than the lead ads do. Because on a well-designed Carrot site, as an example, or others, you need to make sure you have case studies and testimonials. You've got a great about page. That's always one of the top three most visited pages on all of our 10,000 plus customers websites is 10,000 customer websites. We have about 6,500 customers. That's always one of the top three pages because people are skeptical. They're like, cool, It looks like they have a service that can solve my problem. Check. Then they go, how does it work? So there needs to be a how it works page up there. Cool. I understand how it works and how it's different than listing with an agent. Check. And now they go, are they credible? Are they someone I want to work with? And they look at your about page. You look for testimonials and credibility. And that's where they start to dig in. So that's the part where people are missing over with lead ads. And I'll wrap this thought, toss it back to you, is direct mail. Now, people might be asking, so is it one or the other, right? So Don does amazing with direct mail. My friend Tom does amazing with direct mail. There's so many people that are crushing it right now with direct mail, doing amazing with it when you go all in on it and really see it out and don't stop after your first campaign. But then the next thing is, what happens now when you send out that direct mail or the cold call or the text message is we're in the age of credibility and trust. And so even if you don't have a website on that direct mail, or you're not mentioning your company name or website on your cold call or text message, people are going to take out their cell phone and then they're going to Google any identifiable information in that marketing piece to see who you are. Are they a scam artist? Are they someone that I can trust? And so if it's tracking phone numbers on your direct mail piece, or you're texting from a call rail phone number, right? Google that phone number and see what comes up. What's usually going to come up for a tracking number is 8 scam call websites where it's like whocalledme.com, right? And what you need to do is take all those tracking phone numbers and put them on your website, on your contact page at the bottom, below your main phone number. Like you might have 15 of them below there. And you say, hey, you may have found us from one of these websites, cool, or from one of these phone numbers, awesome. These help us to track how you came to us, so we can best serve you. Continue to browse our website and see how we can help you. And so now that will, if you have a high converting website that loads fast, which is what we focus in on, it's going to now rank really high, if not number one, for that phone number. So now when people are going to Google, it's not 8 scam call or whocalledme.coms, which actually remove your credibility. It's your website, which builds credibility. It's going to increase your close ratio on your direct mail, on your cold calling, on your SMS. And so any outbound marketing you're doing drives online demand, y'all. So you guys need to make sure you're nailing the online credibility side with a great website and reviews.
That's actually gold right there. And that's something that's, I want to ask for anybody who does that. How long does it take for that to populate to Google once you add those numbers to your site? Is that a week, a day, a month?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. It's probably not going to be a week, but with tracking phone numbers, there's not a ton of competition for that other than the whocalledme.coms and scam call websites. So we're finding that if you do it right and you've got your 5 or 10 or 1 tracking phone numbers on there, that usually within a month or two, you're going to start to pop in there in the top 5. And here's the cool thing, Don, you don't got to be number 1 for it, because you just have to be a sore thumb in a sea of other stuff that doesn't look like that.
Right.
And with those tracking phone number results, it's going to all look the same. It's going to be whocalledme.com. It's like all this crap, but then you're going to have a credible, actual, legit website that's got your company on it, and contact blah. That's going to stick out. They're going to click that. And the more that they click that, that increases your click-through rate, which that's one of the factors Google looks at for ranking is, it's ranked number 5 right now, but a lot more people click number 5 result than the number 3 and 2 result. That must mean it's quality. They stay on there longer, and that's going to continue to bump that ranking up. So usually within a couple months, you'll see that happen.
Yeah, it's some cool, because we have well over 100 tracking numbers. We track every mail piece that we send out. That's one of the reasons we're able to make it successful. We're also extremely diligent on follow-up, which every marketing channel you do, you have to do follow-up with PPC and SEO. You got to respond to that lead immediately. So, so know what works in that marketing channel, right, is very important, and make sure you're doing follow-up, and all that is huge. So, we've been on for about 40 minutes here. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I could take this conversation. We'll probably have to have you back on, because I can take this conversation for another 2 hours.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah. So, what advice do you give somebody just starting out? If somebody was starting out today, what are some key pointers you get them? Because I know you work with a lot of people. What have you seen make somebody brand new get some traction and get successful?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing, Don, is what we talked about at the start, mindset wise. I think everyone needs to have a very clear idea why you're doing it. Now, I'm not talking purpose. I'm not talking your ultimate God-given purpose, right? I'm talking, why are you doing this right now, that it matters for you to focus and spend time on it, right? And so that could literally be, I don't like my job and I want to get away from it. There needs to be some of that motivation to power you through that first 18 months. But what I would highly suggest all of y'all do is map out a 5-year and write a 5-year vision I call them a story, a vision story. I do 20-year, 10-year, 5, then 1. I'm just going to have you guys start with the 5-year, because I want you to map out exactly what you want that ideal average day to look like in 5 years. I'm talking from the second you wake up to the second you go to bed, the smells you smell, the people you talk to, the conversations you have, where you wake up, what your bedroom looks like, who you're going to lunch with, what time you're going to lunch, what type of work you're doing. I want you to look at that. And then that right there needs to map to how you build your business the next 5 years. Otherwise, you are likely going to build a business you despise. Okay. So be clear on that vision story and be clear why you're doing it now, but also know you're going to have to shift to run towards something within 2 years. Number 2, on the online side of things, or on the lead gen and business side of things, like you had said, pick one marketing method to start with. If it's direct mail, do it and do it well, and don't do it for one mailing and say it doesn't work. In the way that you'll do that and be confident in it is knowing your numbers, is removing emotion from your numbers. If you know that the average profit per deal in that market is X because you talked with other people about it in that market and here's what they're earning, and you know that on average online leads or direct mail leads or whatever, closing those ratios I talked about before. And I would just pick a 25% number. If you're like, I don't know what the cost per deal is, pick 25% of the average profit per deal. And that's your cost per deal target. Get that or under, do the math, and then go, sweet. I know that I should be willing to spend up to $5,000 for this $20,000 deal. And I can't stop at $1,000. I can't stop at $2,500 saying this doesn't work. Right. So remove emotion, use math, go all in one method, and then make sure you're tightening up your online credibility immediately. Because just one lost deal per year at that 20 grand could just cost you $20,000. Not having a high converting website, not doing those simple things to type your online credibility could cost you tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And you don't even know it.
Agreed with all that 100%. So carrot.com obviously is a place where people can get some really incredible websites that are really ready to go out of the box, but you can also customize as well, right?
Yep. You can fully customize. And that's one of the things that most people don't do is, we'll kind of hear, hey, they look the same. They look the same because it's a conversion model that works. But the next thing is 80% of people don't go and change their design and kind of follow our directions. So guys, go in there, use the model that works and converts, and then customize it and build out your credibility on there.
Absolutely. Tell everybody how to get a hold of you if they want to reach out.
Yep. Just go to carrot.com. We've got an awesome blog there, or honestly, go follow me on Instagram. So I answer all my DMs, Trevor.Mauch. That's Mauch, Trevor.Mauch. Go follow me over there.
Perfect. All right. So if you gotten value from this episode, make sure you are sharing it and, giving some reviews and all that kind of stuff. Give me some comments and some love. Obviously reach out to Trevor, follow him on Instagram, check out carrot.com as well. Follow me on Instagram at The Real Don Costa. Looking to drop a lot more content there and start doing more Instagram lives. From this point on, this show will be on the Flip Talk with Don Costa page. For those of you guys who are listening to iTunes, we'll generally do these live there a week or two before they actually go onto the podcast platform. So if you're looking to get the information ahead of time, make sure you're there. And as always, if you're looking for an incredible community to be part of, go to beinthisroom.com and check out what we have going on. Fill out the application. Either Mike or myself will actually jump on the call with you, and we'll get it sorted out, see if it's the right fit for you and the right fit for us, and we'll go from there. So, Trevor, thank you for being on with me today, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Don, thanks for the invite, man. It was a pleasure on my end. Appreciate what you're doing.